I've been telling you guys since the beginning, Pat McAfee does not fit with the rest of the worldwide leader in woke, ESPN. He was also accused of putting Pat McAfee in an uncomfortable position.
If you say that one more time, I'm going to choke out of you when I see you.
And Shannon himself is dropping receipts, and I gotta say, this doesn't look good for his accuser at all. So yeah, I gotta be honest, I do see some similarities here to the Justin case. Look, Justin has now, and Johnny Depp to his credit as well.
One lawsuit, 2 media giants, and a firestorm that no one saw coming. When Shannon Sharpe was hit with a $50 million civil complaint, most expected silence. Maybe a carefully worded statement, maybe his lawyers talking for him. But what no one expected was Pat McAfee lighting up the airwaves with a 90-minute broadcast that walked the line between brutal honesty and legal restraint. In a media landscape obsessed with quick takes and cancel culture, McAfee's reaction wasn't just surprising, it was explosive. Because instead of jumping to conclusions or defending a colleague just for the sake of loyalty, McAfee did something rare. He actually broke it down. What followed wasn't just commentary, it was a masterclass in how to handle scandal in real time. Live viewers flooded in by the hundreds of thousands. Receipts started flying, and suddenly everyone realized this wasn't just about one accusation, it was about power, reputation, and the cost of telling or hiding the truth. But that was only the beginning. From the very beginning, it was clear that Pat McAfee wasn't built for the ESPN mold. He didn't wear suits, he didn't follow scripts, he didn't play the game. When ESPN brought him on, many insiders questioned the move. McAfee's brash, unfiltered style felt like a direct clash with the network's polished, often corporate tone. He joked about cancel culture, said things that made executives sweat, and constantly reminded viewers that he wasn't like the rest of them, because he never wanted to be. And yet, he worked. His show pulled massive numbers. Viewers loved the chaos, the rawness, the honesty. But that same honesty would be tested the moment Shannon Sharpe, one of ESPN's newest faces, became the center of a national scandal. Behind the scenes, tensions were already simmering. Sharpe had been brought in with major fanfare. A Hall of Famer, a polished TV vet, a loud but controlled voice. He represented everything the network wanted to project. McAfee? He was the wild card. So when the lawsuit against Sharpe dropped and the accusations hit social media like a tidal wave, everyone looked to see how ESPN would handle it. But what no one expected was that McAfee would be the first to speak, loudly, publicly, unapologetically, and what he said would set the internet on fire. It started with a headline, buried in a Nevada court docket, but by the time it hit Twitter, the story had already caught fire. Shannon Sharpe, NFL Hall of Famer and ESPN personality, was being sued for $50 million. The accusation? Sexual assault, allegedly committed over the course of a 2-year relationship with a woman identified in court documents as Do. The complaint wasn't vague. It described repeated incidents, emotional abuse, power dynamics, and graphic details that made even seasoned journalists pause before reporting. For Sharpe, the timing couldn't have been worse. He had just landed a new role at ESPN with a massive deal rumored to be near 8 figures. He was riding high off his Club Shay Shay podcast success, gaining millions of views per episode. And then, this. Within hours, the allegations exploded across sports talk shows, morning headlines, and social media feeds. The public reaction was instant and brutal. Some demanded accountability, others cried setup. Everyone had an opinion, but no one had the full story. What made this case different was the money involved. Not just the $50 million, but the ad revenue, contracts, and brands tied to Sharpe's name. Within 48 hours, sneaker deals and supplement sponsors went silent. Companies that once begged for endorsements now refused to answer calls. But while most shows stuck to safe summaries and PR updates, McAfee went live and refused to pull punches. When Pat McAfee hit Go Live, nobody knew what to expect. Would he defend Shannon Sharpe out of loyalty? Would he rip into him to protect his own brand? Would he dodge the topic entirely? Instead, McAfee did something few in the media have the guts to do. He walked the middle line. No theatrics, no blind loyalty, no pandering to outrage mobs. For 90 minutes straight, McAfee broke down the lawsuit in plain language, making sure even casual fans could follow the complex legal terms. He acknowledged the seriousness of the allegations without convicting Sharpe in the court of public opinion. He reminded his audience, again and again, that accusations are not proof. That until discovery happens, no one outside that courtroom knows the full truth. And while many sports shows fueled the fire for clicks, McAfee slammed the brakes. He warned about the danger of social media trials. He highlighted the massive gap between what gets posted online and what gets proven in a court of law. But he didn't minimize the charges either. He made it clear, if the accusations are true, the fallout would be deserved and devastating. It wasn't just what McAfee said that shocked viewers, it was how he said it. Calm, measured, but unflinching. In an era where most rushed to pick a side within minutes, McAfee stayed rooted in one radical idea: wait for the facts. But the facts wouldn't stay clean for long. In today's world, it's not enough to make accusations, you have to drop receipts, and fast. Within hours of the lawsuit going public, Both sides started moving. Shannon Sharpe's legal team released a blunt statement, calling the allegations categorically false and accusing the plaintiff of fabricating events and doctoring text messages. Not to be outdone, the accuser's camp leaked screenshots, DMs, and photos supposedly backing her claims. Suddenly, the internet was flooded with fragments of conversations, some raw, some alarming, some suspiciously out of context. McAfee dove headfirst into the chaos, warning his viewers about the new reality. Evidence isn't evidence until it's vetted. He pointed out how easy it is to fake a timestamp, edit a screenshot, or crop a message to twist the story. He hammered home that metadata, the invisible digital footprint behind every file, would be the real battleground in court. It wasn't about who shouted louder. It was about who could prove their story under a forensic microscope. Still, even McAfee admitted one uncomfortable truth. In the court of public opinion, perception often beats proof. As the receipts war escalated, the stakes kept rising. Not just for Sharpe, but for every brand, sponsor, and network caught in the blast radius. And behind the scenes, ESPN had a brutal decision to make. Inside the ESPN boardrooms, the pressure was suffocating. On one hand, Shannon Sharpe was a prized new asset, a marquee name who could pull ratings and attract sponsors. On the other, the lawsuit threatened to stain the network's carefully crafted image overnight. Executives knew the playbook. They had seen it before. If they stood by Sharpe too strongly and the accusations proved true, the blowback would be catastrophic. If they distanced themselves too soon, they risked looking disloyal and feeding the narrative that allegations alone equal guilt. Pat McAfee, who had lived through his own brutal legal storm with Brett Favre, understood the game better than most. He told his audience plainly, behind closed doors, ESPN wasn't asking, did he do it? They were asking, how bad will this look if we bet on the wrong horse? The reality is, networks don't wait for court verdicts, they wait for sponsor reactions. McAfee revealed that major advertisers live by a ruthless rule. 1 bad headline? Monitor. 2 bad headlines? Prepare. 3 bad headlines? Pull the plug. And Shannon Sharpe had just crossed that deadly third line. The real question wasn't whether ESPN believed him, it was whether they could afford him. And the answer would come quicker than anyone expected. Shannon Sharpe didn't stay silent for long. Late Tuesday night, his legal team released a blistering memo, short, sharp, and leaving no room for misinterpretation. They called the accusations false, malicious, and strategically timed, accusing the plaintiff of manipulating digital evidence to manufacture a case. The real bombshell? Sharpe's lawyers didn't just deny the claims, they promised to countersue for defamation if the lawsuit wasn't dropped immediately. McAfee seized on the language, especially phrases like digital manipulation and malicious intent. He explained to viewers that these aren't casual insults. They're legal grenades, setting the stage for a discovery battle over every message, every call, every photo exchange during the alleged relationship. And here's where things got even messier. Sharpe's camp hinted that forensic phone experts were already being hired. Experts who would dive into metadata, location stamps, and deleted files to either clear Sharpe's name or bury him deeper. McAfee warned, this wouldn't be a he said, she said for long. It would be science versus storytelling. Still, even with a strong defense strategy, Sharpe faced a brutal uphill battle. Because in cases like this, fighting back doesn't guarantee victory. It only guarantees a longer, uglier war. And the first casualties were already piling up in Sharpe's bank account. When the first lawsuit headline broke, sponsors stayed silent. When the second wave of text message leaks hit, they started sweating. By the third headline, it was full panic mode. Within 48 hours, major brands that had been courting Shannon Sharpe, sneaker companies, supplement lines, local endorsements, started pulling the plug. Quietly at first, then publicly. McAfee broke it down for his audience in brutal terms. Corporate sponsors don't care about fairness, they care about optics. And once the headlines stack high enough, loyalty evaporates faster than a deleted Instagram story. He even revealed a chilling marketing rule insiders live by, something most fans never hear. Survive 1 bad headline and you're monitored. Survive 2 and crisis meetings start. Hit 3 and you're radioactive. Sharpe hit his third headline the moment paparazzi splashed photos of him outside a hotel, feeding even more speculation. Deals that once promised millions now disappeared without explanation. Ad campaigns that had already been shot were shelved indefinitely. Brands issued generic, reviewing our partnerships statements that everyone knew really meant, we're done here. McAfee emphasized that it wasn't even about guilt or innocence anymore. It was about risk management. And nobody in corporate America bets on a scandal survivor unless they absolutely have to. And for Shannon Sharpe, the window to save his empire was already slamming shut. But McAfee knew better than anyone what that collapse felt like, because he had survived his own legal war not long ago. When Pat McAfee spoke about legal battles, he wasn't theorizing, he was reliving it. Not long ago, McAfee had faced his own nightmare. A brutal defamation lawsuit filed by NFL legend Brett Favre. The cost? Hundreds of thousands in legal fees. And the emotional toll, waking up every morning with a pit in his stomach, not knowing what headline would hit next. McAfee opened up to his audience in rare, raw moments during the live stream. He described how lawsuits even ones you know you'll beat, eat you alive from the inside out. You don't sleep the same, he admitted. You don't Google yourself the same. You don't trust headlines anymore. He talked about paying 6 figures every quarter just to keep fighting, while lawyers casually racked up hours like it was Monopoly money, about living in fear that one out-of-context text, one misinterpreted joke, could cost him everything he had built. And here's the brutal truth McAfee exposed. Even if you win in court, you lose years of your life you never get back. That's why, even as he analyzed Shannon Sharpe's situation with a critical eye, he couldn't help but feel a flash of empathy. Because McAfee knew firsthand, the courtroom might be where the verdict happens, but the real battle is fought in the mind, in the headlines, and in the quiet moments no one sees. And for Sharpe, that battle was just beginning. But outside the courtrooms and lawyer meetings, something even more dangerous was brewing. The court of public opinion, and it was about to split down the middle. As the legal firestorm gained momentum, the sports world fractured. In barbershops, podcasts, and late-night Twitter threads, fans were split, and the divide was loud. Older fans, especially those who watched Shannon Sharpe dominate on the field, leaned toward loyalty. They remembered the leader in the Broncos locker room, the guy who talked trash on Sunday and volunteered on Monday. To them, this all felt off, opportunistic, like a setup. But younger fans, raised in an era of receipts, call-outs, and accountability culture, they didn't flinch. They had seen too many stars fall from grace to give the benefit of the doubt blindly. They weren't interested in what Sharpe used to be. They wanted answers for what he was accused of now. McAfee highlighted the generational split in real time, showing live poll results. 52% thought Sharpe should take a temporary hiatus. 48% said stay on air, a dead-even standoff. Even callers into the show mirrored that tension. Some voiced heartbreak, others pure anger. Some just wanted the whole thing to go away, to get back to sports, to normalcy, to anything but this. But McAfee made one thing clear. This was sports now. Scandals, lawsuits, brand collapses. These weren't side plots. They were the main storyline. And the longer it dragged out, the more it risked becoming something bigger than just one man's legal fight. It was starting to feel like a referendum on the entire system. Media loyalty, athlete privilege, corporate silence, and the razor-thin line between fame and fallout. In court, facts matter. But online, timing wins. As the lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe gained traction, McAfee pointed out a dangerous reality. The internet doesn't wait for discovery. It builds its own version of the truth. Viral tweets become evidence. Clipped podcast moments become confessionals. Screenshots, real or fake, get judged before they're even verified. It's the court of public opinion, and it moves faster than any judge ever could. McAfee didn't hold back. He reminded viewers that we now live in an era where allegations hit harder than actual proof. And once a name trends for the wrong reason, it's almost impossible to untangle from the noise. He described a chilling new normal. Get accused on a Monday, lose sponsors by Wednesday, be labeled guilty by Friday, all before a single lawyer files a response. And while that reality might be brutal, it's the one high-profile figures now live in. Sharpe's situation wasn't just a legal battle. It was a full-blown PR war, and every move, every silence, every statement, every leaked message was ammunition. McAfee cautioned his audience not to fall for cheap headlines, not to assume screenshots tell the whole story, and definitely not to let cancel culture decide complex cases before the courtroom does. But he also made one thing painfully clear. Once the narrative takes off, there's no pulling it back. And that narrative was starting to turn on Sharpe fast. In the age of infinite content, nothing ever really disappears, especially not your own words. As Shannon Sharpe's legal situation spiraled, internet detectives did what they do best. They started digging old clips from his podcast, past interviews, even debates where Sharpe condemned other athletes for misconduct, or resurfaced. Suddenly, those same bold takes that once earned him applause started working against him. McAfee called it the hypocrisy montage effect, and when someone's own commentary becomes exhibit A in their downfall. He explained how editors and trolls splice together moments to craft a damning narrative. Sharpe criticizing others, Sharpe now under fire himself. A side-by-side split screen made to go viral. It didn't matter if the context was different, it didn't matter if the clips were years old, all that mattered was how it looked. And to many viewers, it didn't look good. McAfee warned that this was the risk of being a loud voice in modern media. The same opinions that built your brand could become daggers if the tide turned. And as the lawsuit dragged on, Sharpe's polished image, the straight-talking, suit-wearing, no-nonsense analyst, started to crack. Not just because of what was being said about him, but because of what he had said before. This wasn't just about legal guilt anymore, it was about narrative control, and right now, Sharpe was losing it. But behind all the headlines and hashtags, a deeper impact was being felt, one that hit fans and survivors in a way the cameras couldn't capture. Beneath the viral clips, sponsor drops, and endless speculation, something heavier hung in the air, something McAfee didn't ignore, the human cost. While the internet turned the lawsuit into content, real people were being affected. Not just Shannon Sharpe and his accuser, but thousands watching who had lived through similar traumas and were now reliving them in real time. McAfee took a rare pause from his usual pace to address it. He reminded viewers that cases like this aren't just stories. For some, they're wounds, reopened every time graphic details are repeated or minimized for clout. He shared that his team had adopted new editorial guidelines: no graphic language, no sensationalism, no unverified claims repeated as fact. Because words once spoken can re-traumatize, and in this era of streaming everything, they're harder than ever to take back. Viewers responded immediately, some thanked him for being careful, others admitted they had turned the stream off earlier because the details hit too close to home. McAfee didn't pretend to have all the answers, but he made one thing clear: you can cover heavy topics without turning them into spectacle. And in that moment, his show didn't just feel like a sports broadcast, it felt like something more. A rare space where responsibility and reach actually met. But as emotions cooled, the big question remained. Where was this all heading? And would either side ever get a clean win? With the headlines circling and public opinion on edge, McAfee brought in the voices that actually mattered now. The legal experts. First up was Janine Prescott, a former federal prosecutor turned sports law analyst. Her take: the case was serious but not unprecedented. The $50 million figure might make it sound like a Hollywood script, but legally, it came down to reputation damage, potential career earnings lost, and whether any of the evidence could hold up under scrutiny. She predicted a brutal discovery phase, one that could stretch for a year or more, unless both parties settled behind closed doors. When McAfee pushed for odds, she gave it a 60-40 chance of going to trial, not because of the facts, but because emotion now controlled the timeline. Next came Dr. Lionel Garrett, a sports law professor who focused on the optics of high-profile lawsuits. He explained that in cases involving celebrities, juries often consider far more than just legal merits. They see status, influence, net worth. And those perceptions inflate damage claims to shocking levels, especially when media pressure builds day after day. Then came Maria Paredes, a financial analyst who had reviewed Sharpe's rumored ESPN contract. Her warning: even if ESPN didn't cut him loose publicly, they had clauses in place that allowed them to pause payments the second he became materially detrimental to the brand. Translation: they could freeze his income and wait it out, leaving him stuck in limbo. One after another, the experts painted the same picture. This wasn't just a legal case anymore, it was a game of strategy, image control, and who blinked first. And if both sides refused to settle, it would be months, or even years, before anyone saw closure. But in the court of public opinion, the verdict was being rewritten daily. At this point, it wasn't just about Shannon Sharpe, it was about something bigger, a cultural shift McAfee had seen coming for years. The moment fame enters the courtroom, everything changes. Lawsuits become headlines, evidence becomes memes, and before a single judge hears a word, the internet has already picked a side. McAfee called it what it was: trial by algorithm. He explained how viral buzz now sets the tone faster than any legal brief ever could. When a case becomes a trending tag, it stops being about justice and starts being about engagement. And in that game, nuance doesn't sell, speed does. That's why stories like Sharpe's don't fade. They snowball, because every new detail, no matter how small, fuels another round of content. Podcasts, clips, reaction videos, fake DMs, AI voice clones. It all adds layers to a story that hasn't even reached the courtroom yet. And it's not just athletes caught in this trap. Politicians, influencers, musicians, anyone with reach is one scandal away from digital trial, complete with a jury of strangers and 1,000 armchair lawyers. McAfee's take? Fame used to be power. Now, it's liability. Because when the culture decides you're guilty, even winning in court might not save your career. That's the new reality. And whether you're Shannon Sharpe or a rising star with a phone full of texts, the message is clear. You're always one headline away from chaos. When the cameras shut off, the hashtags fade, and the sponsors move on, what's left? For Shannon Sharpe, the road ahead is a minefield. Whether he's innocent, guilty, or somewhere in the murky gray between, his life has already changed. His name will forever be tied to a lawsuit most people won't fully understand, but will absolutely remember. And for Pat McAfee, this wasn't just another hot topic. It was a line in the sand. He proved that it's still possible to cover explosive stories without selling your soul for clicks. That you can speak truth, show empathy, and resist the rush to judgment, all while keeping your audience locked in. But as McAfee himself admitted, in today's media machine, fairness and fame rarely coexist. The system rewards speed, not depth. Reactions, not reality. And once the internet spins the wheel, no one knows where it lands. So where does this leave us? Maybe with a hard truth. We don't really want the truth. We want resolution. Fast, clean, convenient. But real life doesn't work like that. And this story, it's far from over. Will Sharpe testify? Will the case reach trial? Will either side leak enough to shift the tide? No one knows. And that's exactly why people will keep watching. Because whether you're a fan, a critic, or just someone scrolling through the mess, you're not just witnessing a lawsuit, you're watching a reputation get rewritten in real time. And in this new era of scandal, speed, and spectacle, the only real verdict is the one history decides later.